So someone like that who teaches you to communicate in such a way, your history and communications, how do you see that pattern playing out unsuccessfully in other things? Maybe you see a parent that isn't teaching their child right. Like, how do you see that going?
Well, I think we all do it sometimes. I mean, sometimes I have really unsuccessful communications moments. I think a lot of us get so busy with what we know that when we talk to somebody, we get condescending, and that turns most people off, or it pisses them off and they want to prove to you they know more than you think they know, right? So that condescension is something that can happen really quickly. And it's because sometimes people ask you the same question that you've been asked how many times, and you're tired of answering the same question, but for them, it's the first time they've ever known somebody they could ask that question to, right? Like, and that's the thing for me, when I got into agriculture, I realized there were so many people, like a million years ago when Twitter first started, you had to pick a name, and I was not smart enough to pick a short name. I picked a long name, and now it's followed me on all the social media channels, right? So I'm JP Loves Cotton, and it's because I wanted to talk to other farmers and other people in agriculture, but I didn't want to pretend I knew stuff about those, but I knew cotton because I'd worked in cotton a long time.
In what sense? How did you work in cotton?
I worked for a magazine called Cotton Farming Magazine, which I know everybody and your listeners, y'all are going to be checking that out, I'm sure. But I also worked for a PR agency in New York that did a lot of stuff in the cotton, rice, peanut markets. And I just really, kind of got drawn in. And then I worked for a cotton seed company, and most people haven't thought about why you need 15 different varieties of cottonseed.
Why do you?
Well, because somebody in South Texas wants to grow it, and then somebody in the Missouri Boot Hill wants to grow cotton. And like one variety probably doesn't do really well in both of those places.
Gotcha.
Right? So like, they have a really long summer in South Texas, not so long in the Missouri Boot Hill. And wow, the humidity in a place like the Mississippi and the Boot Hill versus Arizona and stuff. So there's all those things that, I mean, even after working in cotton for years, I got a job working with a cottonseed company, and I was still kind of going, so how many different kinds is there? But people always would send me like a picture. They were driving and like, I see a cotton field. And if you can be excited for them, they want to tell you all about it, and they want to ask you questions. And so that, like, putting a carrot out there so you can encourage curiosity always works for me. It's probably not for everybody, right? Some people, if you're a professor, or if you're at this or at that, and you're really trying to be the expert, maybe you're not trying to encourage a lot of curiosity. Maybe you want to be the expert. Maybe you just want people to listen to you, but that's not my gig. And I found talking to people and like, oh my gosh, are you serious about that? Like it makes people smile when they're talking to you, and then they want to tell you more. And then they're like, absolutely, wow, she's learning a lot, and they feel good about themselves. And I really am learning. So why not do it that way? It's worked for me a long time.
I'm totally with you. That's I'd probably say this on the podcast at least once a podcast, but one of my favorite quotes is from Friedrich Nietzsche, and it's man's maturity is to have regained the innocence of a child at play.
Right.
And like that seems to be the epitome of what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Here.
And in today's world, we're trying to learn everything, right? Like, and none of us remember what we learned in like junior high and high school, right? I was working on some things recently with water, and I have a niece that's working with me, and she's asking me questions. We were talking about aquifers, and I finally said, well, there's the soil, and then there's the rock, and then there's like eventually it filters down, and that's where the water's held in the aquifer. She goes, oh my God, this is like earth science, but like until I like went, this is what an aquifer is, this is why it matters. She was like, I don't picture it in my head, and I can't get it. And
that's
some
right.
of us,
why it matters is such
some
a
of us are visual
piece.
thinkers, right? So figuring out how to tell people visuals and helping them see it really makes a difference. Some people are numbers people. So, finding different ways to help other people learn is a really big thing that I've had to do. And some of that is in contentious spaces.
Say more.
Oh gosh. I think when Vance was on your show, he talked a little bit about like how he was kind of excited about coming behind the curtain and he was going to, either expose it or just learn crazy amounts of stuff. Well, that was all created because there was this whole industry online of people who were making money by pushing back on one topic and creating controversy and all this stuff. There were a lot of people that were fundraising over pushback on GMOs and things like that. So,
And they were making money how, like through lawsuits?
I
or
mean, like through lawsuits, through
blogs,
fundraising,
Okay.
through like clickbait. I mean, it's all the things we see today, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's politics or medicine or whatever, you have people online who've gone, oh, I can make money, right? And it's so hard to be an average person online because you start learning a little bit about something, but you don't know when you're beyond your depth. Does that make sense? Like it's the Dunning-Kruger, right?
Yep.
Like you don't know when you've gone too far, but you also are really drawn into certain personalities and things like that. And so you may not be getting the other viewpoints. You may not have things that are triggering critical thinking.
Mm-hmm. That's
and
right.
it was really early. I think agriculture, because it's such a small percentage of America that are farmers, you had really powerful names like Michael Pollan, right? He's like huge. He had written stuff for the New York Times and he's got all these books and he goes in and he writes these books about what he learned about farming. Well, I still don't know. I still learn about farming every time I talk to farmers and stuff. And I've been in it longer than you've been.
It's a great line.
Right? So, but I'm still learning about it all the time. So, there's got to be gaps in those books, right? There's gaps in all our books. But if you're learning so much, you don't realize, oh, wait a minute, that may not all line up. He may be giving me great things to think about, but he may not have every answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the danger of the internet is this people or anything is you have to talk with conviction. And when you talk with conviction, you're so charismatic that people get
confident
totally on
in
board
what
with
you know, right?
Right.
Because if you waffle too much, then in today's world, people will like, whoa,
and they'll go find someone else to follow.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily a great way to live your life or to like cultivate the life I wanted, at least, right? So for me, I needed to find people who kept me objective.
How do you do that? This is great.
Well, I worked at Monsanto and my brother has an organic co-op. So there's a good way, right? People used to say, oh, I want to come to y'all's house for Thanksgiving because they assumed that we would just argue the whole time. Well, you don't do that with family, right? When you have a different viewpoint.
Why? Because some of my audience may not even be familiar with what you're talking about. What are the dynamics going on there that you're speaking about?
So Monsanto's a company that sold like crop protection products, right? So things that were manufactured in a facility.
Glyphosate being the
glyphosate Roundup is one of the biggest, but also like I worked a lot with seeds that were Roundup ready. Well, if you aren't careful online, it will say that they've injected Roundup into the plant so that it can take Roundup, which was not the case. It was a little tiny bacterium they found that could resist it, right? So, and organic farming says, I don't want to have any of those things involved, right? I never had a problem with my brother growing things his way. I mean, heck, if you're going to grow food, good on you. Whatever it is that you're going to do, because that's hard work. Like, you're going to do the real work. And I don't think other people should get in the way of farmers using other tools, right? Because people like me who don't want to grow our own food really benefit from farmers being able to produce for more than their families. Just
Thank
more
goodness.
than their families. St. Louis, luckily, we're in the middle of a farm belt, so there's a lot of farms around us. But like that's the thing. So people see what my brother does, and it is beautiful. I mean, like I've got a video of it from on my podcast where he's like bottle feeding the lamb that's mom died in labor, right? Like. How fantastic is that? And he's planting his carrots and he's still eating butternut squash now that he grew last summer. And he's got cabbage and it's all good, right? But why does that then have to negate a farmer that's growing hundreds of acres instead of 10 acres, right? Like, But online, people want to make you think that you have to pick one way or the other. And so there was this like tension online. Now you either have to be Republican or Democrat, and you have to be way over on that side or way over on that side. Like, you know, like people don't want to let you just think, well, it's more complicated than that. Like immigration is a complicated topic. Like, let's not make it one or the other.
Mhm.
Like we need some immigration. Do we need all immigration? You know, like all that stuff. But that was part of my job in agriculture, is to go out and find people that were uncomfortable with the way we were doing things in agriculture and help them get to know it so they could decide if they were really uncomfortable once they had some information available to them or not.
And did you find that they remained uncomfortable, or once the information was shown, they became more comfortable?
It depends, right? Like you don't win everybody over, right? Like,
Is there a pattern of the type of person that would change their mind?
I think I would say there was a large pattern of people who had been made to fear food in the grocery store. And you may not know this, but there were absolutely people who would shake over having to go to like a grocery store and buy food, right? Like it was so scary to them because they weren't sure what's in the food. And I would say there's a lot of people like that now, but they're so worried about ultra processed or something. Like they've just moved on to a different topic, right? Than how the food is produced by the farmer. Now it's more the food companies. And, you know, there's probably some variations of ultra processed food. Like for me, I love, there's a kind of milk that's been ultra processed, so it doesn't have all the lactose in it. So I drink more milk than I ever did before because I have ultra processed milk, right? So how does that, like, does that mean it's bad? You know, like it.
That's what my mother would think.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Lots of
Not to
people
call you
do,
out, Mom.
right? Like, I mean, but you know, probably my brother probably doesn't drink it either. It's ultra filtered. Like it's just got extra layers of filtering.
Right. What does that mean? Extra layers of filtering. What's going on in that filtering?
So, you know, pasteurization is warming it and getting the bacteria and stuff out, right?
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Louis
yeah.
Pasteur. Look it up. But then filtration helps, like that lactose is a natural part of milk.
Okay.
And so how can you get it out? You can if you filter it. And so people like me then can drink milk because we have lactose issues, right? So some processing is really good for me, I think, because otherwise I wasn't drinking milk. And milk has a lot of vitamins in it and stuff like that. That's okay, thing, right? So there's all those kind of things that like it goes online and you cannot tell what's good information or what's bad information. And none of it's good or bad, right? Like probably.
Yeah.
there probably is some bad, but there's variations of degrees. And, you know, like most people I disagree with, I have to agree with them on some things, even if I really fervently disagree with them on some other things. They say some other things that really do match up to science or that match up to my life experience or that match up to something, right?
Absolutely.